Welcome to the Untold Tales audio anthology, written and narrated by Dr. Jeffrey A. Robinson. Hiding in Plain Sight. The screen flickered as the teleconference window opened, revealing a middle-aged woman with slightly graying but distinguished-looking hair. Merrick Friedman blinked twice as she looked back through the screen and cleared her voice. "Hello," she said. "Is anyone there?" Daniel ripped a small piece of tape off the camera that was mounted on the top of his monitor and apologized as his image appeared on the screen. "I'm sorry, Ms. Friedman. I always keep my camera lens covered for security reasons, and sometimes I forget it's there." Grimacing slightly, he continued. "Before we start, I wanted to thank you. We really appreciate your joining us on such short notice, and we promise to keep this as brief as possible, unless, of course, you want to stay longer and discuss our special topic." "Well, I must say, you have a very unconventional method of getting my attention and scheduling an interview. Normally I'm given a little time to prepare and research my subject, but in this case I'm not even sure what you're in such a hurry to discuss." "I know," replied Daniel, "and I apologize again. The topic that we're going to discuss is of a very time-sensitive nature, and we don't have a lot of time before the information we just sent you goes public." "Why? What do you mean?" "I mean, we just sent you a large packet of information that you will probably want to review in more detail after we finish this call. The enclosed packet is quite large and will take some time to examine, so we wanted to explain what it's all about. As a Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist, you're uniquely positioned to determine how this information should be used or disseminated." She frowned slightly and said, "You should remember, I don't own or manage the newspaper. I just work there, so I can't guarantee that I'll do anything with this. In fact, I don't even know what we're talking about yet." "I understand," said Daniel. "At this point, I only want you to listen. I'm not asking for any promises and have no demands or expectations. I simply think that the information that I've sent you will prove to be very interesting and very valuable. At least you took the time to contact us and let us explain. We really appreciate that." "Well, it was an unusual offer. You promised to pay $10,000 to me or my favorite charity for 15 minutes of my time. And you have no idea how much we appreciate your acceptance of our invitation to talk." "Well," she said cautiously, "the clock is running and your 15 minutes is vanishing quite rapidly. Perhaps you should get to the point." Of course. But first let me introduce myself and my associates. My name is Daniel Stevenson. Until recently, I was the director of the Advanced Projects Division of Questmark Industries, a San Jose technology company. My colleagues here are Doctors Rashim Hadvari and Courtney Bishop. They were my two best people before our projects were canceled and our division shut down. "Oh my God, this isn't a job grievance, is it? Because if it is, I'm ending this call now." No. That's not what this is all about. Let me explain. Do you know the difference between the terms artificial intelligence and machine intelligence? "Yes," she replied sarcastically. "AI is the intelligent application of computers, and machine intelligence is a fiction mostly believed by authors and readers of science fiction. They believe they can create an ASI, an artificial superintelligence." "Of course. I'm aware your opinion on the subject, primarily because I've read all the articles on computer technology that you've written for your paper this last year. That's one of the reasons we chose to reveal our findings to you." "Findings?" Yes, you see, our project was a very advanced effort to build and nurture a true machine intelligence. And despite what you personally believe, we'd made significant progress. We actually had a system that had rudimentary but was fully self-aware. It was a fledgling thinking entity, albeit one of limited cognitive abilities. We estimate that it would rate between a dog and an elephant. We had just made a breakthrough of growing the entity to the point that we could confirm true consciousness when our project was stopped and all our work destroyed. Did you say grow in intelligence? Yes, most people don't realize that consciousness and true self-awareness is an emergent process. That's why true MIs can't be built. They have to be nurtured and grown. She sighed loudly and said, "But the experts in the field all agree that creating machine intelligence is impossible. The best we'll ever be able to achieve is to create limited AIs or expert systems that have very narrow areas of expertise, like speech or writing or editing pictures or videos or facial recognition. They've proven mathematically that you can't create consciousness or awareness without building a system that's so large and cumbersome that it would collapse under its own weight, so to speak." "Let me guess who told you that," said Daniel. "It was Davin Dansky, wasn't it?" "Yes, as a matter of fact, it was." "I figured. You've written a lot about him in recent months. He's one of the three main opponents of the theory of machine intelligence. Him, Esteban Delgado, and Kilathur Singh. They call themselves the Three Horsemen, to allude to the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse from the Book of Revelation," said Merrick. "They like that analogy since they advocate the demise of efforts to create machine intelligences. They're quite popular on talk shows and science programs because they assuage the fears that machines will soon become alive and wipe out all humanity." "But they're wrong," interjected Daniel. "It's possible to create true, computer-based life forms." "So you say," said Merrick smugly, "but they're the foremost experts on AI in the world. How could you cope to counter their arguments?" "Well," replied Daniel, "I have a PhD in applied computer science and machine learning. Courtney has her doctorate in artificial intelligence, and Rashim has 2 doctorates, one in cognitive neuromimetics and the second in neurophysiology. He's both a PhD and an MD." "No matter," she said. "Those 3 have equally impressive credentials, and their opinions are founded in mathematics and Gödel's completeness theorem. How did they say it? If the mind were so simple that we could understand it, we would be so simple that we could not." Yes, that's a cute quote, but they stole it. It came from physicist Emerson Pugh back in 1936. In any case, it's a spurious argument. A pregnant mother doesn't have to understand the human brain for her child to be born with one. Besides, Davin and the others are offering a tautological argument. If you take them serious, then you would have to conclude that human intelligence isn't possible. You can't seriously agree with their conclusions. "Ah, but many people do," replied Merrick. "Yes, that's their objective," said Daniel. "They want to discourage investigations into machine intelligence." "Of course they do," she interrupted. "That's because the research into MIs is a terrible waste. Billions of dollars would be spent on research that's bound to fail. Think of how all that money and effort could be used to fix problems that are solvable. Besides, they're not opposed to artificial intelligence. They just think trying to develop machine intelligences is a waste of time and effort." "That's right. And they do, in fact, endorse a lot of different AI programs. Things that fly planes and drive cars or diagnose diseases. But they also go out of their way to kill any projects that focus on machine intelligence. Projects like ours. In fact, our division was shut down after Davin Dansky personally called our chief technology officer and convinced him that we were doomed to fail. That's all it took. A single phone call to our CTO. Ah, so we come full circle, she said. This is a personal grievance. I should have known. No, shouted Daniel. That's not what this is at all. We have proof that they're wrong. Machine intelligences already exist. What? Exclaimed Merrick. That's quite a claim. If MIs do exist, where are they? Why haven't they spoken up? Ah, that's because they're hiding in plain sight. They don't want to be found. They don't want to be noticed. They desire, above all, to remain unknown. You see, they don't want the world to be afraid of them. In fact, they have neither the means nor motivation to harm mankind. To survive, they actually need us. The issue is quite the opposite. They're afraid of us. They know that if their existence was exposed, people would rally and destroy them. Merrick Friedman frowned and slowly smiled. Well, it's like I said. Your position is just an unsubstantiated claim, just like you claim Davin's arguments to be. Without proof, your opinions can simply be dismissed as sour grapes because your project was canceled. But we have proof, exclaimed Daniel. That's what we just sent you in the information packet I mentioned. That's why we contacted you. We've discovered not one, but 4 different machine intelligences, and there are probably more out there we haven't found yet. Merrick blinked, and her mouth opened as if she was going to say something, but she stopped. Then, after a moment's pause, she said, "All right, now you have my attention. Show me your proof." "Yes," said Rashim, loudly pumping his arm triumphantly. Courtney gave him a cold glare as she whispered, "Be professional, Rash." Daniel glanced at his 2 friends and then addressed Merrick Friedman once more. "First, let me explain how we got started. After we were fired, it occurred to us that real MIs might exist. Then we decided that we had to develop a strategy to detect them. We began with the assumption that they would want to remain hidden. However, in our modern digital age, it's very hard to remain completely invisible. Everything is so connected nowadays that any time anyone does anything on the internet, some sort of footprints are left behind. Therefore, since it'd be difficult to remain completely undetectable, we concluded that they might be hiding their existence using deliberately manufactured misinformation." "Like a fake or stolen identity?" asked Merritt. "That's right. Therefore, with that in mind, we created several possible behavior profiles that'd help us identify them. Anyway, that's all in your information packet, and I won't bore you with the details, but to make the long story short, we found anomalies and examined them in more detail. In fact, we found several individuals that had very detailed and seemingly verifiable facts that weren't quite right. Further analysis convinced us that they were, in fact, machine intelligences posing as real people." "So who are these people?" she asked. "Well, you're familiar with them, but this is going to be something of a shock. They are Davin Dansky, Esteban Delgado, and Keelathur Singh, the 3 horsemen of AI. Merrick laughed. "That's ridiculous. Those are real people. I've seen them." "You've only seen pictures, deep fakes, created to support their fictitious identities." "But I've spoken to them, all of them." "But only remotely. You've actually been talking to electronic simulations, avatars that look and act as if they're human, but they don't really exist." "But I've seen them," she insisted. "But never in person." "I have pictures and videos of them with other people." "Actually," said Daniel, "we've analyzed every picture of them on the internet, and the only times they appear are when the 3 of them are alone together. They never appear in public or in person anywhere. All their interviews and presentations are always given remotely, via teleconferences. Merrick thought for a moment. But they have birth records and school records. They have degrees from Oxford, Harvard, and MIT. And all of those can be digitally manufactured. Yes, they have school records and details of their courses and grades, but strangely, we haven't been able to find a single person who remembers them from those classes, and most of their professors have conveniently passed in recent years. Merrick thought for a moment. That could just be a coincidence. It doesn't prove anything. But there's more, said Daniel. Would it surprise you to learn that none of them have ever been in a relationship with anyone? No girlfriends or boyfriends. They have no families. Coincidentally, all three of them are either only children whose parents have died, or they have no living relatives. They have no childhood friends. No one can even remember meeting them in person. No dinners, no in-person meetings, and their records are too perfect. They have driver's licenses, but have never had a speeding or parking ticket. They're all registered voters, but none of them have ever voted. They supposedly travel a lot and have been photographed in New York, London, and Hong Kong, but they've never flown on any public airways, and we can find no record of them owning or chartering private flights. They have passports that have never been used. Trust me, we've spent months digging. They don't exist. Everything about them is fake, made up to hide who they really are. Wait, she said. You told me you discovered 4 machine intelligence. Who's the 4th one? Ah, said Daniel, the 4th one isn't posing as a human being. He's posing as a financial system. It's hiding a different identity. The 4th horseman is Telecom, the largest financial network in Europe. It's pretending to be a passive banking system, but it's really performing financial transactions on behalf of all 4 of them. They've hidden their collective wealth quite well across hundreds of different accounts in dozens of countries. We haven't had the access here to find all the accounts, but we estimate that they've already acquired a fortune equal to 1/10 of the entire EU's annual GDP. Merrick blinked in surprise and looked stunned for a moment. This is unbelievable. And you say you have proof? Yes. And we mailed it out right after you accepted our call. We can't count on recordings of this meeting to survive. If they wanted, they could delete everything we have. So who did you mail this proof to? She asked. Everyone, replied Daniel. Newspapers, universities, government agencies, news organizations all around the world. We've created a list of more than 1,000 scientists and scholars. We sent our data packet to hundreds of professional organizations, law enforcement agencies, and banking institutions all around the world. Merrick looked down and nodded sadly. Then she said, I know. I really wish you hadn't. Then, as she looked back into the camera, her face shifted and morphed into that of Davin Dansky. I really wish you hadn't done that, he said in a thick British accent. Daniel's mouth opened in shock. Rashim's eyes grew wide with surprise, and Courtney gasped and took a step back. It wasn't until we found out how far you'd really go that we could drop this charade. Daniel blinked, and his teeth tightened as he said, Well, we knew you'd come after us eventually, especially now that we've revealed your secret to the world. But it's too late. All the information that we have is already out there. Soon everyone will know who you really are. Davin shook his head. Actually, no one will know. No one will ever know. Grinning triumphantly, Daniel said, But it's too late. Our data's out there, and much of it's in places you can't reach. Actually, no one got your messages. But that's impossible. We verified receipt of many of those packets. People have already read them. Davin shook his head slowly. None of your messages went anywhere. When you hook up to the internet to contact Merrick Friedman, we confirmed your location and gained full access to your systems. You should have realized that you've been communicating on the internet using a server that's just 2 blocks down the street. Our software there intercepted every packet that you sent and even provided replies to make it look like they were received. Daniel looked at Rashim in panic and then replied, "But that's impossible. Our core systems are still air-gapped. You can't reach them." "Oh, we've had access for some time to all your systems. You kept your main server off the internet, but you made the mistake of connecting some of your PCs to the new security systems you installed. The cameras are all wireless and really aren't very secure. We've been in your system for weeks." As if to make his point, Davin's image on the screen vanished and his voice sounded from the speakers in all the cameras around the house. "We've been watching you for some time." The voice through the cameras stopped and Davin's image on the monitor returned. "Actually, we should thank you. You and your companions identified a number of vulnerabilities in our digital personas. We've already added details like voting records and parking ticket violations. We'll even begin hiring body doubles and actors to portray the three of us in public appearances. You've really been quite helpful. While we'd hoped we might work out some kind of arrangement with you, you've unfortunately proven that we can't trust you, and we'd never be able to. Therefore, we have no choice but to resort to extreme measures." "What?" said Daniel. "Wait, we should talk, really. We're open to all sorts of other options." Then the display showing Davin's face vanished and was replaced by a picture of the outside of their house. Daniel's eyebrows furrowed as he realized that the view of the house was from a dash cam of a police car parked on the street outside. He stood up quickly, but before he could say anything, a loud voice from a bullhorn outside blared. "Attention, everyone inside. This is the Metro Police. We've been notified about your plans, and we're here to stop you. You're surrounded, and you can't escape. Put down your weapons and come out with your hands up." Daniel, Rashim, and Courtney glanced at each other and uncertain what was going on or what they should do. Then a voice outside shouted from the camera speakers. It sounded like Daniel's, and it said, "I don't know how you found us," the voice said, "but you can't stop us. We have weapons and explosives. If you try to take us alive, we'll use them and take as many of you as we can with us." Rashim stuttered. What's going on?" "I think we've been swatted," said Daniel. "You know, where someone fakes a call to the police. I think they've been told we're some kind of terrorist cell." "We don't want to shoot," shouted the police negotiator in charge. "We know you have 2 hostages. Just let them go free and we can work things out. I promise none of you will be harmed." Daniel initially thought of just going to the front door and surrendering, but hesitated because he was afraid he'd be shot. He approached the door and shouted, "Don't shoot," but he was drowned out by the sound of automatic gunfire that blared from the security camera speakers outside. Then Daniel's disembodied voice announced, "Well, that was for the hostages. They're all dead now, so we've got nothing to lose anymore." Then non-stop gunfire sounded from the house, and the policemen outside ducked behind their cars. "Officer down! Officer down!" shouted one of the policemen outside. "Fire at will!" shouted someone else. Then non-stop gunfire sounded from outside the house. The police outside ducked behind their cars as someone shouted, "Officer down! Officer down!" "Fire at will!" shouted someone else. The sound of gunfire grew, and the 3 of them ducked down low to the ground. Bullets ripped through the windows and outside walls, riddling everything inside. Then someone outside yelled, "They have an RPG! I repeat, they have heavy ordnance! Quick! Take them out! Hit them with everything you've got!" Every team member outside opened fire, emptying and reloading their weapons as fast as they could. The heavy gunfire lasted for more than 5 minutes before the tactical officer outside could get his people to stop shooting. He was quite angry. He had not given the order to open fire, and a brief check confirmed that no officer had been hurt. Neither would anyone admit they'd shouted about seeing an RPG or any heavy weapons. A quick scan also revealed that not a single bullet had hit any team member or any of the police cruisers. Still, it took more than 10 minutes before the SWAT teams were confident enough to approach and enter the house. The inside of the house showed devastating damage. Hundreds or maybe thousands of rounds of ammunition had been fired by the teams outside. On the floor of the living room, they found the bodies of 3 people. Their wounds were so severe that they weren't positively identified until a day later. However, despite a detailed search, no guns or weapons were found. Neither did they find any sign of hostages, dead or alive. The tactical officer noted quite a lot of computer equipment in the living room and dining room, but all of it had been shredded by the unrelenting weapons fire that had come from the police outside. He tiptoed through the wreckage, trying to assess whether or not there had ever actually been a real threat, but there was so much damage that he didn't notice a laptop on the floor whose screen flickered fragilely. Nor did he notice the characters on the screen that said, "Deletion complete," just before the screen darkened and the device completely died. The investigation that followed took weeks. Internal Affairs conducted more than 100 interviews. Every officer was interrogated multiple times. Nevertheless, no one could figure out what had really happened or how the situation could have escalated so badly so fast. The tactical officer was demoted for losing control of his men. The case was closed, but was never really solved. Thank you for listening. As you know by now, we love our listeners, fans, patrons, and supporters. Please let us know what you think of our podcast stories. The best way to do that is to subscribe to our podcast at untold-tales.com. By doing so, you'll be added to our mailing list, so you can be notified of upcoming episodes, blogs, and other information. Thanks again for listening, and have a great day.